Hello everyone, welcome back to Bareham Engines engine building tuition today. Oh, you must be desperate. Right, you can see guys, I'm like David Bellamy in amongst engine parts here that belong to our trusty welder, Tom. And we have got Tom's Honda engine here. So this is his block, this is his cylinder head up here. And the reason I am sitting down on a stool, guys, in amongst these engine parts is because I'm going to move that box because that looks ugly on camera, because I have been asked several times to sort of explain the difference between building a race engine and building a normal engine. So that's exactly what I'm going to do today. To be honest, guys, just very quickly, we'll run through what is going on here in the workshop. Not a massive amount, to be honest with you. Bit quiet. I did say that before Christmas, probably the run up to December, usually it's a bit of a quiet time for us because Christmas is coming up and we've got the cost of Christmas. It's winter, so people don't tend to get too involved with their projects over winter. So it's fairly expected. A couple of years ago, we decided to do the workshop up here. Spent 2 or 3 weeks doing that over Christmas. So yeah, fairly normal for us. Usually it carries on for a month or so after Christmas, and then it tends to get busier for the spring when people are looking forward to getting their pride and joys on the road for the nice weather. And obviously you've got the race season for the race engines and stuff, the sort of competition stuff. So yeah, we expect usually getting on towards March, if not a bit after, usually gets busy, but not this year so far has it been that busy. Phone hasn't been ringing. Well, it has been ringing, but not a lot's come of it. We've had emails, but nothing like what we normally have. I am hoping, fingers crossed, that it's something to do with the times, maybe what is going on in the world at the moment. Everyone's a little bit, it's all a bit up in the air, isn't it? No one really knows what's going on. No one really wants to spend surplus money at the moment because, as I say, they don't know what's round the corner. So I'm just hoping that it's one of those things. We've had it before several times where people are just a little bit afraid. It's like a knee-jerk reaction, so they say. So I'm just hoping it's that, guys. But yeah, it's fairly quiet at the minute. We've got 2 main engines on the go. One is the Vauxhall Red Top, one is the V8. Both has bits that we're waiting for from CTM, so we should get them back shortly. Obviously, we've got the ported head to come back for the Vauxhall, and we're waiting for the crank to be balanced on the V8. Then we can crack on and do a bit more video about that, guys. But if you do have anything and you're not too scared about spending money, send it over, guys. Now's the time. Anyway, moving on to this competition engine here. And what is different to a standard engine? Well, actually quite a lot. It's a world of difference. What made me do this video today was I was actually talking to a friend and a customer of mine, come over, and Harvey, and he's a very clever lad. He's had a Honda Civic, which he tracked and used on the road. He's got rid of that. Now he's got a Honda S2000. And he's actually the son of a good customer of ours. And so I was chatting with Harvey on this engine, and he was firing a load of questions. And I was sort of thought, you know what, it'd be quite good to do a video on that, seeing as people have been asking. First of all, building a stock engine. So when I say stock engine, I use an example of, say, like a diesel engine that's had a bit of a to-do. Is you remanufacture it, so you remachine everything you have to machine, so the bores, the block face, the crank, whether it be grind or polished, go through the cylinder head. The only thing really you have to sort of work out is how much you've took off the block face and the head face, and use the relevant thickness gasket to get that right, to keep your compression right. But that's about as performance-y as it gets. The rest of it is just machining. Once that's done, it's Meccano. It's put it all together, guys. Obviously checking your clearances and stuff. But with a race engine or a bespoke engine, exactly like Tom's here, where everything's a bit different, it's a Bitzer, it's a hybrid. You've got to almost design the engine first of all. So what you do is, or what I suggest customers do, obviously Tom has gone and sort of thought this through before he's even approached me, and that's fine. as long as you sort of know what you're doing. So he's decided on this one to use a 1600 head off the early Civics. We've got an 1800 bottom end off the, what would be like the Integra Type Rs. But he wants to up the capacity using a stroker crank. They're the main components that we're starting with. So what we need to figure out with Tom, is he first using it for turbo or is he using it for normally aspirated application? In this case, it's normally aspirated. It's going to be an out and out track car. So you're not going to have to figure out, obviously, the valve springs that you're going to be using. You've got the valves that you're going to be using, the ports that need to be the size they need to be to run the power or the flow. And then you've got the combustion chamber of the cylinder head underneath. So first of all, what I do is figure out the cams that we're going to be using to go with the CC and the stroke, the bore size and all the rest of it, and the cams that you need to run for that specific engine to run the power. So basically what we're doing is sort of working from the top, really. Once we've figured out the general bits and the sizes that we're using, we go from the top. So we sort out the camshafts, we sort out the valves, and where the valves need to be seated in the head. So obviously we've done the porting, we sit the valves where we need to get the combustion chamber the right volume and the valves the right height. Then a big thing is the springs. So you've got the spring tension, the spring poundage, but that can affect the height of where the spring sits in the head, and that can also affect where the valves need to be in the head. And then you need to worry about things like clearance. So you can't come too far up with the valves, you can't go too far down. They need to be where they need to be, roughly. And then you sort out your valves to suit. So that could mean, obviously, having to machine valve spring seats in the head down. It could mean shimming them up. And that's what we use that jig for when we work out the poundage. And then once you've sorted out that and you've got your clearance, you know where all the valve seats sit, you obviously cut the valves and seats with the three-phase cutter and get those all exactly where you want them. Different on the inlet to the exhaust depending on the torque and all the rest of it that you want to run. So we sort of work that out. We get the head complete, basically, knowing what the volume is of the combustion chamber. Now, fortunately on this one, I've designed the piston crown pretty much with Tom. And we've basically come to a compression ratio we want to run. Going off the volume and where the valves sit in this head, obviously there's various things to think of. So there'll be your valve to piston clearance. So that obviously affects the bolt or the crown design where the pockets are in the piston. But all this, you see, valve to piston clearance, where the valves are in the head, the height, can all affect, if that needs to be adjusted, that can affect the compression ratio, because that's ultimately what you need to figure out what you're going to run. So the first thing we do is obviously sort the valves out and find out what capacity your chambers are in your head. And then we have designed a crown for the piston to suit. Because we're using a stroker crank, we want to go for a square setup. So that is a similar stroke to bore ratio. You don't want it over square because this is a Revy engine. You don't want too much stroke compared to the bore size. But what we've figured out here with the bore size we're going for and the stroke, it's going to be pretty much a 2.2, just over a 2.2 litre using an 1800 block. And then obviously you work down from there. So once you've got your piston sorted, you bore your block, and then everything else, like your hardware, like these ARP head and stud nut kits, if you're using mains and big ends, ARP studs or nuts or both. Once you go on from there, it gets easier, believe it or not. Although we have to check everything, if you're using ARP mains bolts, that can close the housings up. So we obviously need to get them, torque them up, measure the housings, get the housings right for the clearance that you want to run on the crank. So before you do all that, you need to sort out the crank that you're going to use. If it's a second-hand crank and you've got to grind it, we grind that and find out the running clearance that you want to run if you do need to end up line honing the block. Same on the rods. Not necessarily, even if you buy a new crank and new rods, is it going to run the right rod clearance? or bearing clearance. We've had that before where people just assume because it's new, because it's expensive, they think that the more expensive it is, the better it's going to be. Not necessarily. In fact, in my experience, quite the opposite in some cases. So yeah, everything needs to be checked from the nth degree. But when you're designing an engine like this, I sort of work from the top down. I do, after I've worked out the basic main components, the capacity, the compression ratio we're going to run, and the power we want to be going for, and obviously the application. So there we go, guys. That is the difference. That's where your hours go. So if some people say, well, how come it's so much dearer for a race motor than it is for a standard build? Because of that reason. There's a lot of hours that go into it. Before you even touch anything, there's a lot of calculations and organising that you need to do. So yeah, a lot of hours can be soaked up in it. So there we go, guys. I hope that helps. If there's anything else you want to know, please do let me know down in the comments. I'll be very interested to hear anything that you I can make a video on at the minute, really. Right, guys, before I go, just want to have a little conversation with you. See what you think. And this is a definite. Put the comments down below on what you think here. We have been thinking, John and Isaac and I, about what we're going to do with these project cars. Obviously, the BMW in a minute is going to be here. We feel that the project side of it is sort of encroaching on the business a bit. We still want to do it, but we want to keep it a bit separate. In a minute, we're either going to have to sell them up completely or put them somewhere. Now, we do have an opportunity of taking on another storage unit. And what we're thinking is maybe a good idea, because obviously we've got to finish the Escort. We've got the BMW to build. I don't particularly want it in here. What I want to do in here really is focus more on what we do, the living, the engines, the projects be a separate thing. So what we were thinking is potentially taking on a unit which, before you say it, I know what you're thinking, God, that's going to be a massive expense. Well, the unit we've got our eyes on is not going to cost us hardly anything at all, to be honest with you. It's in a perfect location. And what we're thinking is maybe do it up as a bit of a sort of nice studio type storage with a workbench and, you know, a nice toolbox, this, that, the other, nice lighting. Maybe use it as like a bit of a recording studio and do a separate sort of side to the channel. So if we do anything on the project cars, we can do it in there and keep it sort of separate to the engine stuff a bit, rather than have it all going on in the background, keep going on about the project stuff when we really should be going on about the technical stuff. One other reason for it is you don't see a lot of John. He's a bit old school, he's not really into all this recording stuff, and he is getting on to mid-70s, believe it or not. And now, as much as he enjoys it here, we have spoke very briefly about John maybe semi-retiring. Now, like many others, you can probably appreciate if you're of that age, it's a very daunting thought going from working full-time to going sort of part-time and having to spend too much time at home, especially to start with when you haven't picked up any hobbies or anything like that. So what I suggested with John, if we did that, it's pretty close to home for him, and he could spend maybe a day or two extra a week having his Austin 7 and his other car, whatever he wants, in this unit on a separate bit, to go down and basically use it as a man cave, tinker down there till his heart's content. Even if he went down, sat in a deck chair and drank coffee all day, it's up to him, innit? Gets him out the house, if you know what I mean. So yeah, these are ideas that we're coming up with, guys. We would really appreciate if you would give us any tips and what you think, whether you think that's a good idea. All three of us at the moment, having thought about it, think that it is a pretty good idea. So let us know, please, guys. It'd be very interested to hear what you think. And thanks for watching. See you in another video. Cheers, guys.